It starts with a message that feels almost too perfect. Not just kind, not just interested, but tuned to the exact frequency of your loneliness. They say the thing you secretly hoped someone would notice. They answer faster than anyone has answered in months. They make ordinary time feel charged, cinematic, chosen. And for a while, the intensity does not feel dangerous. The attention gives your ordinary day a shape that feels almost impossible to resist. It feels like evidence. It feels like evidence that you were right to keep hoping. It feels like evidence that the long wait was finally over. But some traps do not begin with cruelty. Some traps begin with affection, delivered too quickly to question. This is the first problem with love bombing. Love bombing is not simply someone being romantic. It is not the same as enthusiasm, generosity, or early chemistry. Real affection can be excited and still leave you free. Love bombing is different because the affection has a job. It accelerates intimacy before trust has had time to form. It creates emotional debt before you understand the terms. A healthy beginning can move quickly in feeling, while still moving slowly in entitlement. It floods the room with praise, promises, attention, and future plans. Then it asks you to treat that flood as proof. It becomes proof that this person knows you. It becomes proof that this person is safe. It becomes proof that hesitation would be ungrateful. The gift is not the trap by itself. The speed is the trap. Love bombing works because it does not only speak to your thoughts. It speaks to your nervous system. When someone gives intense attention after a season of feeling unseen, your body responds before your judgment catches up. The phone lights up and your chest changes. The compliment arrives and your shoulders drop. The promise lands and some old hunger wakes up. This is not stupidity. This is biology meeting timing. That is why the moment can feel like recognition even when the evidence is still thin. Your brain is built to notice safety, belonging, and social reward. So when a person appears to deliver all three at once, the signal feels urgent. The danger is that urgency can impersonate truth. The first phase is idealization. This is where you are not merely liked. You are framed as rare. They say they have never met anyone like you. They say the connection feels spiritual, destined, impossible to explain. They remember small details and turn them into proof of devotion. They praise your wounds as if those wounds make you special to them. They may call you home before they know your habits. They may call you soulmate before they have seen you under stress. The role feels flattering because it turns uncertainty into a ceremony. The words feel intimate, but they are often based on a sketch. You are not being fully known yet. You are being rapidly assigned a role. Then comes the mirror effect. The person seems to love everything you love. Your favorite music becomes their favorite music. Your future dream suddenly matches theirs. Your old pain is something they claim to understand perfectly. At first, this feels like compatibility. But real compatibility reveals itself through time, conflict, and ordinary decisions. Mirroring skips that slow process. You may feel less like you are being discovered and more like you are being copied back to yourself. It creates the feeling of being understood before understanding has been earned. The mirror can be conscious manipulation, or it can be an unstable person trying to become whoever will keep them close. Either way, you are not meeting a grounded self. You are meeting a reflection designed to keep your attention. After the mirror comes the future. Love bombing often moves quickly into plans. Not vague daydreams, but detailed emotional architecture. They describe trips you will take. They describe a home you might share. They describe the way holidays will feel. They imagine how safe your children would be. They promise this love will be different from everything that hurt you. This is called future faking. The promise asks you to grieve a future before it has earned a place in your life. The future becomes a drug before the present has been tested. You start protecting a life that does not exist yet. And because you have imagined it, losing the person can feel like losing an entire world. Acceleration is where the trap becomes easier to see from the outside. The relationship wants more time, more access, more disclosure, more commitment. There is pressure to reply quickly. They pressure you to explain your silence. They pressure you to make plans before you have had space to think. Boundaries begin to look like rejection. They make privacy begin to look like secrecy. They make slowness begin to look like fear. A healthy person can be disappointed by a boundary and still respect it. The faster the bond moves, the easier it becomes to confuse discomfort with devotion. A love bomber often treats the boundary as an emergency. That reaction tells you more than the compliment ever did. Love bombing does not always isolate you by saying, "Stop seeing your friends." Sometimes it isolates you by becoming the loudest emotional event in your life. You check your phone during dinner. You replay their words while a friend is talking. You stop asking neutral people what they see because you already know they will tell you to slow down. The relationship becomes a private weather system. Inside it, everything feels meaningful. Outside it, everyone seems too cautious. You begin translating concern from other people as proof that they cannot understand the connection. That is how intensity narrows the room. It does not have to lock the door. It only has to convince you that no one outside understands. Then something changes. The replies slow down. The warmth becomes inconsistent. The person who once answered instantly now makes you wait. The praise becomes harder to access. The future that felt certain becomes blurry. This is the first withdrawal. It hurts because your body has already learned the reward pattern. The contrast is what makes the silence so hard to read with an ordinary mind. The silence does not feel neutral. It feels like falling out of the world they built for you. So you reach. And when the warmth returns, relief can feel like love. This is where intermittent reinforcement enters the story. A reward that appears every time becomes predictable. A reward that disappears forever becomes easier to grieve. But a reward that comes back unpredictably can become addictive. One beautiful message after 2 cold days can reset your hope. One apology after a cruel comment can make the cruelty feel like an exception. One perfect evening can outweigh a week of confusion. The nervous system starts chasing the return of the beginning. The pattern teaches you to measure love by the relief that follows uncertainty. The beginning was not stable, but it was intense. And intensity leaves a memory that ordinary judgment has to fight through. People often ask why someone stays after the pattern becomes painful. The answer is that they are not only attached to the present person. They are attached to the version of the person who arrived first. They miss the attentive version. They miss the certain version. They miss the version who seemed to see through every wall. When that version disappears, the mind tries to solve the disappearance. Maybe I was too needy. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe they are stressed. Maybe if I become easier to love, the beginning will come back. That is why self-blame can feel practical, because it gives you something to change. Self-doubt becomes the bridge that keeps you walking towards someone who keeps moving away. Not every love bomber is using a calculated plan, but the pattern still creates control. When affection arrives too fast, you may skip observation. When the future is promised too early, you may ignore the present. When warmth becomes inconsistent, you may start working for its return. That is the control layer. It changes what you monitor. You monitor their mood. You monitor your tone. You monitor the distance between messages. Control is not always a speech. Sometimes it is the system that trains your attention. You begin managing the relationship like a fragile machine, and slowly your own inner life becomes smaller. There are signs worth taking seriously. They talk about forever before they know your ordinary life. They make your boundaries feel like betrayal. They want constant access to your attention. They use your vulnerabilities to create instant closeness. They push for exclusivity before trust has been tested. They praise you in ways that feel more like worship than recognition. They become wounded or angry when you slow the pace. They promise repair but repeat the same pressure. One sign alone may not prove the whole pattern. The clearest signal is not the beauty of one gesture, but the pattern around your no. But a cluster of signs is information. Information is not cynicism. Information is protection. Healthy love does not need to rush your nervous system to prove itself. It can be warm without becoming consuming. It can be interested without demanding instant access. It can make plans without using the future as a leash. It can hear no without turning the room cold. Healthy love has rhythm. It has patience. It gives your friends, your work, your sleep, and your judgment room to exist. It does not require you to abandon your pace in order to prove your seriousness. Most importantly, healthy love becomes more trustworthy when reality enters the room. Love bombing often becomes less trustworthy when reality enters the room. That difference matters. The first response is not to prove whether the person is evil. The first response is to slow the system down. Do not argue with the feeling. Create space around it. Wait before making major commitments. Keep seeing your friends. Write down what happened, not only what was promised. Notice how they respond to a calm boundary. A safe person may feel disappointed, but they will not punish your pace. Slowing down gives your body enough time to hear what your fear and hope are hiding. A controlling pattern will usually reveal itself when speed is removed. Slowness is not a lack of romance. Slowness is how reality gets a vote. The tragedy of love bombing is that it uses one of the most human desires against you. You wanted to be chosen. You wanted to be seen without explaining yourself. You wanted to believe that the waiting was worth it. Those desires are not wrong. They are the reason the pattern works. The point is not to become suspicious of care, but to stop confusing pressure with safety. But love that is real does not need to make you smaller to feel certain. It does not need to rush you past your own wisdom. It does not punish the time required to know someone. If affection cannot survive a boundary, it was not safety. If a future cannot survive patience, it was not a promise. Real love gives you room to stay awake,